Hello and welcome back. I'm Julian Gower, and this is the first episode of Inspecting History. And today I'm going to tell you a story about one of the biggest thefts during World War II. Now, when I think about looting during World War II, the Nazis always come to mind. But in this case, it wasn't Nazis, but 3 American GIs. Schloss Friedrichshof sits just outside Frankfort, Germany, and it was the family seat of the Hesse-Hohenzollern family. And this is where the story begins. Friedrichshof was built between 1889 and 1893 for the German Empress Victoria. Now, this was her primary residence until her death in 1901. That's when her youngest daughter, Princess Margaret, inherited the castle and all of its contents, including numerous jewels, tiaras, art, silver, and 9 bound volumes of correspondence between the German Empress Vicky and her mother, Queen Victoria of England. During World War II, Princess Margaret of Prussia was the matriarch of the family and the legal owner of the castle. She was the daughter of German Emperor Frederick III and Victoria, Princess Royal, eldest daughter of Queen Victoria of Great Britain. She was a sister of German Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II, and she married Princess Frederick of Hesse. Her daughter-in-law was Sophia of Greece, the sister of Prince Philip, the consort of Elizabeth II of Great Britain. Not only was this family royal, they were heavily involved in the Nazi Party. Margaret was a member of the National Socialist Party. 3 of her sons and a daughter-in-law were killed in action fighting on the German side in World War I and World War II. Her 2 surviving sons, Wolfgang and Christoph, were heavily involved in the Nazi Party. And it's Christoph who was married to the sister of Prince Philip. It had been decided in October of 1944 that due to the numerous air raids and the bombing in the Frankfurt area, that the family was going to collectively hide their jewels for safekeeping. Prince Wolfgang had them buried in a basement in order to keep them safe. The sub-basement of the tower was dug up and a wooden box lined with zinc was placed inside. Concrete was then poured over the box and its contents. They stored the family's wine collection in a corner of the basement, and then for added protection, they built a false wall out of bricks. A detailed inventory was taken at the time of the burial due to all the family members that had placed items in the boxes. In April of 1945, American troops began their occupation of Germany. They confiscated and they turned the castle into an officers' club and retreat. Captain Kathleen Nash was tasked with managing the club, and it wasn't long before she started to pilfer small items from around the castle. Nash must have thought she had died and gone to heaven. She was in charge of this massive castle, she was playing hostess to all the GIs, and she met her future husband, Captain Jack Durrant, at the club. In November, Corporal Roy C. Carlton, who had been assigned to the castle, found the fake wall and knocked it down. There he found the stash of over 1,500 bottles of vintage wine. After further inspection of the cellar, he discovered a portion of the floor with fresh concrete. He called for Nash, who ordered the floor to be ripped up. The heavy box was removed from the basement and taken to Nash's room, where the 2 pried it open and dumped the contents on her bed. Can you imagine the awe and surprise that they must have felt seeing all of those glittering jewels? There were at least 9 diamond tiaras studded with hundreds of diamonds and rubies. There was a platinum bracelet filled with 125 diamonds, another one containing 365 diamonds, a 12-carat yellow diamond ring, a wristwatch decorated with diamonds, and many, many more pieces of jewelry set in gold and platinum, all studded with emeralds, diamonds, and rubies. A few days later, Durrant visited the castle, and Nash showed him the jewels. It's not clear who broached the subject first, but the 2 discussed in length if the treasure was considered abandoned and how much should they take. Durrant started to make inquiries of his roommate David Watson about the legality of abandoned property, and it looks like Watson got suspicious, so Nash and Durrant cut him in. Eventually, they decided to take it all. We all felt they were legitimate loot. The background of the possible owners was thoroughly discussed and determined that they were either dead, SS members, or ardent Nazi sympathizers, and as such, the properties would never be returned to them, no matter where or how they turned up. In order to make transportation easier, they began to pry the gems from their settings. Then they mailed many packages to their relatives in the United States. Nash to her sister in Wisconsin and Durrant to his brother in Virginia. Nash and Durrant went to Belfast, Bern, and Zurich, where they sold some diamonds and many of the mangled gold settings. Rumors of the discovery reached Princess Margaret, and in late November she requested a meeting with Nash, who refused to give her a receipt, but promised her that the treasure was and would be kept safe. That's when Nash and Durrant started to make plans to get out of Germany. In January 1946, Princess Sophie, who was Margaret's daughter-in-law, requested a meeting with Nash in order to obtain some jewels for a wedding. Nash refused her. That's when Margaret and Sophie reported the theft to the American authorities, but by the time they were acknowledged as truly missing, both Nash and Durrant had left the country. In early February, Nash was placed on terminal leave. Now that's that gray area between being in active duty and being formally discharged. And her discharge date was set at May 30th. A month later, Durrant also returned to the United States and began trying to sell some of the hoard in Washington, D.C. While there, he obtained a discharge by forging the signature of the officer who was responsible for making discharge recommendations. Now, both Nash and Durrant were free from the army and persecution. Since returning to the States, they had traveled almost continually. Durrant had purchased a 1946 Hudson and attempted to buy a car for his brother using diamonds. He and Kathleen had also driven down to Florida and on to Texas, where they sold some of the loose jewels. Durrant had stored most of the jewels at his brother's home, and he made numerous trips to Chicago where he attempted to sell large quantity of loose diamonds. In the meantime, the military's investigation led straight to Nash, Durrant, and Watson. The three had left numerous witnesses and a very clear paper trail. Watson, who was still in Germany, agreed to spill the beans for immunity. Durrant's forgery was discovered and a warrant for his arrest was issued. It was now only a matter of time for Nash and Durrant. On May 24th, a telegram was sent to Nash's address recalling her to active duty. She was to report on May 29th. Nash claims she never received this telegram, but their actions over the next few days tell a different story. Durrant started disposing of the jewels. He and his brother took many parcels out and buried them alongside country roads or in a wooded area. On May 28th in Chicago, Nash and Durrant married. And now that seems very suspect because a spouse can't testify against their wife or husband. On May 30th, a warrant for Nash's arrest was issued and MPs started looking for the duo. They split up and managed to stay just one step ahead of the MPs. Eventually, both she and Nash were arrested early on June 3rd in their Chicago hotel room. Nash gave a full confession, and Durrant initially cooperated with the authorities by trying to help recover some of the jewels from a Chicago criminal to whom he had fenced them. He told the MPs it would be very involved and complicated matter getting the jewels back, and somebody may get hurt. The authorities let him make private calls to his fence in hopes that he could recover the jewels. For days, he continued to make calls outside the earshot of the MPs. After days of waiting, the fence called, and he told them that he had hidden the jewels in a locker at the Illinois Central Station. Durrant found the hidden key, opened the locker to reveal a paper package, which was handed over to the MPs. However, when they inspected them, Durrant said some of the jewels were missing, some of the bigger diamonds. The MPs had him call the fence back, who admitted that they had not returned all the diamonds. More calls were made throughout the next few days, and on the 9th of June, they went to the LaSalle Street station where the fence had left the package and the coat check. He told Durrant the ticket would be found in the 6th telephone booth. At LaSalle, he found the ticket, but it was torn and it read, "Too bad my hat knocked your ticket off. Guess I have a right to keep the baggage." When the attendant was questioned, he stated that there was a package and it was about the size of a shoebox, but it had been picked up earlier in the day. Durrant quit cooperating. The couple was flown back to Germany on June 17th to stand trial with Watson. Their separate trials lasted almost a year. Their defense concerned the legality of the military court to try them. It was also argued that it was a common practice to steal things during the war and that these were spoils of war. The charges of my stealing the Hesse jewels are baseless. If the court says I committed any of these criminal acts allegedly, then thousands of people in this theater of war and in the United States are as guilty as I and have unclean hands. Kathleen was tried first and found guilty, and she got a 5-year sentence at the Federal Reformatory for Women in West Virginia. Watson, even though he had immunity, still stood trial, and he was found guilty and he received a 3-year sentence. And Jack Durrant was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. Watson was paroled in 1947 and he died in 1984. Nash and Durrant were both released in 1952 and spent the remainder of their lives together. She died in 1983 and he died in 1984. In August 1951, the Hesse family was given back the stolen valuables and what remained of the jewels. It was only about half of what was stolen. These were only then worth about 1/10 of their original value because the settings had been destroyed. At the time, it was one of the world's biggest jewel thefts at worth $2.5 million. Today, it would be worth about $34 million. Today, Schloss Friedrichshof is a hotel that you can visit, and it has an award-winning 18-hole golf course that was designed by Dwight D. Eisenhower. And that is the story of the Crown Jewels of Hesse. Be sure to like and subscribe for more inspecting history.